Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to my Murphy table. I've got something a little different. We're just wrapping up. There's about 3 days left of the Armageddon War Kickstarter, but I thought I would take a moment to show you a arts and crafts project I'm working on. Woo! I actually got the idea. There was someone on Board Game Geek that posted their pictures for a custom foam insert of their 65 game with all the components. And I forgot to write their name down, and I didn't take the time to look it back up to tell you. But if you go to Board Game Geek, go to the 65 game page, you can find pictures. It's really, really cool. So I wanted to show you what I have started. So I'll probably post just a couple videos of during progress. I'm not going to film constructing stuff, but I'll show you kind of end product and throughout what the results look like. So 65, that's the game that we're doing this for. I've made an insert once before for the game Heroes of Normandy. That has a lot of components. However, with 65, when you've got like the city map of the Hughes city map, and you've got the Marines and Anzac expansion, and then when you add in the Alone in the Jungle, plus you have vehicle counters, which are big. Hard to get good coloring on that. Lighting, focus. But anyway, what I've done with the base game, because I mostly play base game or like when I play solo, but for the base game when I first got it, I put all the counters in these trays. I mean, it worked out perfect, and they look good. And I know what I want. They're right there, so that's no problem. But those trays take up a lot of space, and then the box, even though the box is big, there's still a lot of game that doesn't fit. Plus, these large vehicle counters do not fit at all in those trays. So a lot of times what I do, where's the vehicle sprues? So what I did in the past is, let's say the vehicle fit here. That's not where it goes. I just grabbed it. I think this is upside down. But when I played, I would just pop out the vehicle I need, and then I could just pop it back in the sprue when I was done, and pop that back in the game. And it actually works out pretty good. The only problem with that is depending on how the die cut for each counter, sometimes it's not a perfect match, and so if you try putting the wrong counter in the wrong sprue hole, you can sometimes start to damage the counter, start to peel some of the paper off. So as a long-term solution for storage, it's not the best. So I would end up with a combination of counters in these counter trays and then counters that I would just keep sticking back in the sprue and hope I don't hurt anything. So there's a lot of stuff here. I've pulled out quite a bit of stuff because I am just trying to organize. It's organized chaos right now. So I'm popping up counters. Got counters out over here. So let me go ahead and bring what I've got. So with the game, the way it's set up right now, you can actually fit most of everything in the box. So right now, this has got the USMC expansion booklet. We've got Alone in the Jungle. We got the basic rules. I've got my player aid charts, and then the maps, the base maps. Perfect. The rest of the stuff is going to be the counters. Now the cards, so now you've got that material. Then there's all the counters that I've got kind of strewn out. And I've been trying to work on my vehicle stack. So I've got them kind of lined up here, and my son came in. He wanted to look at stuff, so he was tearing that apart. So I was just starting to kind of put some basic organization together. All right. So to do this, I'm just using some white foam board that I found at the dollar store and measured the inside of the box. And then what I did was when I had this, I measured, but I had my measurement a little too good. The bottom here fit so well that it was hard, the air resistance, because the air didn't have a way to escape. So I actually ended up trimming off about 1/16 of an inch off the side and the top, just so this fits in pretty, still really snug, but it's easier to get in and out. So I know that people like measurements for when they do their own. So I don't know if you can read the ruler. So this actually clocks in at about 8 inches at 8 7/8 of an inch wide. And then for you centimeter folks, then it's right about 22.5 centimeters. And as far as the lengthwise here, the length of the box, it's right around 32 centimeters, or let's look at the inches, it's right around 11 7/8 of an inch. So that actually fits pretty good. Now I'm using hot glue to hold everything together, and the hot glue works really well, except for a problem I noticed, and I should have remembered from the last time I made a board, is glue is going to squirt out a little bit as you push things together. So if you don't take your finger and kind of wipe that up as you go along, that actually rubs on the inside of the box. So your perfect fit is still okay, but now it's kind of a not very smooth fit. So just make sure if you're using hot glue, or actually any glue, anything that spills out, you got to make sure you trim that off. I'm going to see if I can maybe stand that down, or once that really hardens up, just try to smooth this back out. That way I get a nice good fit. Now, the height of the walls, what I did was I just took one of the counters, and I wanted to make sure that this box was high enough that the counters could fit in there comfortably, and in case I did set something on top, it's not going to accidentally push down or damage the counter. So when this is all in, so far I've only put in the 2 side walls, well, the 4 walls. What I'm working on now is kind of deciding exactly where things are going to fit. So like I know my vehicle counters will be over here. And the only problem when you store things like this, I love the look, everything looks nice, you pull out the stuff you want, you got to leave enough room that you can actually separate out the stack a little bit so that you can kind of flip through your counters and find the ones you want. Because if you make this too tight, then it's kind of a pain to try to sort through. So part of this is going to be guesswork as to exactly how big of a counter tray I want. The other thing too I'm going to do is actually going to make all my walls, inside divider walls, are going to be about this height. This is 1.5 inches. So if I put this down, the walls, I said 1.5 inches, but I guess I trimmed some off. Those are actually, they're 1.5 inches. And then for you millimeters people, they're about centimeters. They're 4 centimeters, just about 4 centimeters tall. So that's how tall these inner walls are. The reason I'm going to make them all the same height is because when it's all said and done, I'll still be able to put in the city map. Now, even though I made those walls a little bit taller, as you can see, there's going to be some gaps. So the 65 top box is not going to sit completely flush. There's going to be a slight gap between the bottom of the box and then where the lid for 65 rests. And I'm okay with that. I mean, so I could have made this inner wall a little shorter. So that's something, if you make your own custom insert, that's something you could think about, is exactly how tall you want these walls. Because if you fit this map, it's quite a bit of a map to fit in. I was just keeping it stored over there in the box that it originally came in. But I'm thinking, since I'll have some space, I might as well fit this in here, even with that little bit of a gap. Then I'll have the city map, the solo expansion, the Marines expansion, and the base game, counters, cards, everything will be stored. Now, as far as cards go, that's another thing I got to think about, and I got to remember that currently I don't have my cards sleeved. I'm thinking about sleeving them, so either way I got to leave room. Now, the Board Game Geek video I saw, they actually had their cards not only sleeved, but it looked like they were in separate trays. So when they open up the box, they could pull, you know, the base cards out. They could pull the solo cards out. But when I play, I plan on pulling the entire tray out so I could get to the individual maps and components. So I'm not going to make those separate trays, because once I have this out of the box, it's going to be on the table next to me somewhere, and I can grab the cards as I need them. So they're just going to be sitting in here. But again, I just got to remember, you know, once I put a wall, let's get a shorter piece here. You know, I got to leave probably can't see gaps very good, but you want to make sure you leave a little bit of gap to account for if you sleeve your deck. So it'll be a little bit of a gap. And then same thing is you got to leave a gap here at the front and cut yourself a little like thumb slot, so you can actually like take your thumb, reach in. I know when I did my Heroes of Normandy, basically when I had my cards walled in, I then took just two short pieces and just put a short piece here and a short piece here, so the thumb goes all the way down. That way you don't have to try and stick your thumb inside the container or inside the barrier you made. You just slide it right in there where the thumb hole is, and get your cards all the way down to the bottom. So little things to consider. Very similar with what you might do with the counters, is again, after thinking on how much space you want to put in there for them to float around so you can sort through to find the counters you want, is you know, leave like a little thumb gap so you can maybe pull some up. Or what I did with Heroes of Normandy specifically was, once I knew where a certain stack of counters would go, even if I made it a solid wall around, I left enough space between the counter and where the wall would go. That way I could just have room to sort and kind of look, pull out the ones I wanted, and then once I found one I wanted, I could just stick my whole thumb in and then start to pull out counters. And of course, as I pull counters out, it gives you more room to look. You know, so lots of little things to think about when you put together your custom tray. So this is just the beginning part. I've got just the base box insert, and the big thing will be thinking about where to put everything. Again, because the only real problem is, you know, how do you want to sort? Because with the tray I've got, you know, I got my Vietnamese and I got my Army and everybody to, you know, they're separated out by column pretty much. So in here I'll probably do the same thing. You know, we'll put Americans here, for instance, put Viet Cong here. So we'll probably take like this much of the box is going to be counters. Alone in the Jungle counters, those will probably have their own little separate area. You know, and then Alone in the Jungle also came with some, let me show you here, like some building hexes, so I'll have a little spot set aside just for those. And that's about it for now. Some thoughts, ideas, and opinions on my insert. So once I get some more done, then we'll come back and show you kind of a work in progress. And maybe 2 or so videos from now, we'll have a finished product to show you. So I hope you enjoy. And if you do make your own custom inserts as well, you know, feel free to share thoughts and ideas on how you do it. I know some people use Elmer's glue. I see some people will use pins to kind of hold things together. You know, so I've seen different ways to construct the boxes. Foam core, hot glue works for me. My X-Acto blade and my cutting mat over here. Ruler. I got a metal ruler. That way I'm not cutting into a wooden ruler. So those are some of the supplies that I use. So share your thoughts and comments, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks a lot.